As we combine all of our motion together into one fluid mobility with our arms, we're going to start by moving each joint independently. So lift the shoulder, lift the elbow, lift the wrist. Drop it down, lift the shoulder, elbow, wrist. Shoulder, elbow, wrist. And then let that start to soften so it becomes one wave. To the outside, forward, to the outside, and forward. Go to the opposite side, lift, 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 relax, lift, 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 relax. Shoulder, elbow, wrist, relax, shoulder, elbow, wrist. And then start to soften that side as well. To the outside, forward, to the outside, and forward. Next one's a little challenging. Lift your shoulder up to begin. Drop your wrist down, drop your elbow down, drop your shoulder down. Let's do it again. Arm up, wrist, elbow, shoulder. Wrist, elbow, shoulder. Opposite side, lift your arm up, wrist, elbow, shoulder, wrist, elbow, shoulder. Last one, wrist, elbow, shoulder. Now, wrist comes down, elbow comes down, shoulder comes down. Wrist comes down, elbow comes down, shoulder comes down. And start to soften that out as well. You don't need to recruit your hand right now, as long as you're flexing and extending your wrist. Opposite side, make sure that the wave is fluid all the way to your shoulder, not stiff and tight. Make it to the outside. Now, when you put them together, make sure that you're letting that wave of motion carry from one side to the next. Across your body, shoulder, elbow, wrist, shoulder, elbow, wrist, shoulder, elbow, wrist, shoulder, elbow, wrist. When you do the opposite side, drop down. Think of it as swimming, but more three-dimensionally. Do it to the side. It's almost like two snakes chasing each other. Back to the other side. And then back in front. And then relax. In our fingers, we're going to try and keep the wave going throughout our hand so that we're working across, not just independently in the fingers, but realizing that it connects to our hand. So start with inside circles with your thumb, and then immediately follow it with 3 circles with your pointer finger. To your middle finger, to your ring finger, and to your pinky finger. When you get completed, start with your pinky and move backwards. 3 circles, then to your ring finger. It'll recruit other fingers at first as you move into your middle finger, back to your pointer finger, and back to your thumb. Don't worry about the recruitment. Move over to the other side. As you get better at this, you'll be able to relax other parts of your hand. 3, and into your middle finger, to your ring finger, into your pinky finger. Switch the other direction. Think about how often we use our hands. They're bound with a lot of tension. This is like giving yourself a hand massage. And then you're finished. As we move down to the thoracic part of your spine, the 4 ranges of motion are a little peculiar because we have to also deal with the expansion of our chest. So when you move forward with your spine, you're also lifting upwards. Lift your solar plexus up towards the sky. And then when you pocket and fold down, don't just lean backwards, but collapse. So you move forward and lift. That should be a natural inhale. Just allow it to happen, and then collapse and fold back down. Forward and lift, and collapse and fold. The next may be a little bit challenging, but as you come back to center station, think of trying to fix your hips in place. You can put your arms out just to help you, but glide your spine from one side to the next. Don't try and bend or lean. Just let it glide from one side to the next as you reach. And you're finished. As we move down to our pelvis, we store a lot of tension, and we have a great deal of immobility here. So I really want you to concentrate on first extending and having a rounded hip, opening up your hip flexors. As you collapse down, Sit back like you're going to sit on a chair into a squat. Don't bend over. Press forward, curling your pelvis up, and then snapping fully into a rounded hip. Sit back like you're going to sit in a chair. Arch. Sit down till your thighs are as parallel to the ground as you can manage. And then forward, rounded hip flexors, full extension. And sit down one more time. Arch back. Sit back into the chair. Now let's move on to the lateral movement. Try and put all of your weight. If you have to balance by holding onto something, that's okay. Try and put all of your weight on one leg and push your pelvis as far as you can. It should feel uncomfortable and tight if you haven't moved this range of motion. Move to the opposite side. Tilt and push. Hold on to something if you're not stable and your legs aren't strong enough yet, but really reach. You can make the motion shallower, but you must sink down and root in order to tilt the pelvis sufficiently. One more time, deep, sit, root, deep, and you're done. With beginner class movement of your entire spine, we first have to make sure that there's full releases in your pelvis, and then we're going to go through the basic ranges. So, as you slowly bend over and place your hands out, what I want you to focus on is tilting to one side, just like we did with the pelvis lumbar ridge. Tilt to the opposite side. If you can, start working your way up to a figure eight like we worked on standing. Maybe you'll hear some pops and releases in your hips, but when you bend over, you're lengthening the muscles, so that it's more likely that the stretch is going to happen. Remember, don't try and stretch tightness. Move to the tension, not through the tension. Now you can begin with the basic ranges of the spine. First, bending over. As you come back up to station, push your hips forward and let your head drop back. Don't look back. Sit down. Make sure that you're not wrenching your head up like trying to force a crunch. When you're in back position, fold at the hips and bring your neck back into station. Then forward, push your hips up, let your head drop back loose. Fold at the hips, lean forward, squat down, push your hips up, and come back to station. Side bends are the elementary, but what I want you to do is focus on the pelvic tilt that we did with the pelvic lumbar region. Then allow your arm to come over your head and relax. Come back to center. Tilt and push to the opposite side. So the far knee should be bent. Come back. Opposite side. Make sure that this is in motion, not standing and holding. Keep mobile. Remember, the job is to wash the joints with that synovial fluid to keep them lubricated and fed well. And then come back to station.